Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the indomitable leader of Burkina Faso, has once again seized the world's attention with his historic visit to Moscow. Invited personally by Russian President Vladimir Putin to attend Russia's 80th Victory Day parade.
History is being written before our eyes. Today, the world just heard Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, deliver one of the boldest, most explosive speeches ever given on Russian soil. And make no mistake, this wasn't just a diplomatic appearance. This was a declaration, a defiant message to the West, a call to Africa, and a challenge to the very structure of the global power order.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the indomitable leader of Burkina Faso, has once again seized the world's attention with his historic visit to Moscow. Invited personally by Russian President Vladimir Putin to attend Russia's 80th Victory Day parade, an honor reserved for the Kremlin's most trusted allies.
Standing shoulder to shoulder with Russian leaders, Traoré didn't hold back. He took aim at Western imperialism, economic exploitation, and the decades of neo-colonial influence that have bled Africa dry. In his signature, unapologetic style, he spoke with the fire of a man who's not just leading a nation, but spearheading a continental awakening. From Moscow to Ouagadougou, from Washington to Paris, the world is paying attention, and not everyone is happy. Traoré's words sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, military analysts, and global markets alike. So, what exactly did he say? Why did it strike such a nerve? And what could this speech mean for the future of Africa-Russia relations and the crumbling grip of Western influence on the global South? Let's break it all down, piece by piece, because this wasn't just a speech. It was a shot fired in a new geopolitical war.
This is not the first time Traoré has shaken the world from a Russian platform. His 2023 speech at the Russia-Africa Summit left African leaders stunned and Western powers scrambling. Today, his latest visit has amplified his message, cementing his role as the voice of a generation determined to end poverty, halt deadly mass migration, and dismantle the shackles of neo-colonialism. When President Vladimir Putin extended invitations to African leaders for the Victory Day celebrations, it was clear that Moscow sought to deepen its ties with the continent amid a shifting geopolitical landscape. Leaders from Mali, Niger, and other African nations joined the prestigious guest list. But from the moment the invitations were announced, one name dominated the conversation.
Calling out neo-colonialism, point blank. Enough is enough. Those thunderous words marked the opening of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's now viral speech, delivered in Moscow, an explosive address that has sent shockwaves through global diplomatic circles. Speaking before a crowd of dignitaries, media, and international observers, Traoré issued a searing indictment of Western influence in Africa. He accused former colonial powers, particularly France and the United States, of maintaining control through an economic and psychological leash, effectively calling out institutions like the IMF and World Bank for imposing what he described as a new form of slavery. With fiery conviction, clenched fists, and unwavering resolve, Traoré condemned debt structures and exploitative trade deals as tools used to suppress African progress. "You've replaced chains with debt," he thundered. "You've traded whips for trade deals designed to fail us." His rhetoric echoed sentiments growing across the African continent, where leaders and citizens alike are increasingly questioning the legitimacy of Western-dominated financial and political systems. What stunned global analysts wasn't just Traoré's fiery message, but the setting. By voicing his outrage on Russian soil, he deliberately positioned Burkina Faso in alignment with powers that challenge Western hegemony. It was a symbolic yet unmistakable rebuke of NATO and EU diplomacy, signaling a dramatic shift in Africa's geopolitical stance. Traoré's message was crystal clear. Burkina Faso, and perhaps a broader coalition of African nations, is no longer willing to remain silent or submissive in a system built to exploit. The age of quiet compliance is over.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, speaking to an audience of the Burkinabé and students based in Moscow after the Victory Day celebration in Russia, urged Africa to prioritize practical science and implicitly pursue nuclear capabilities for true sovereignty. He criticized Africa's reliance on foreign resources citing examples like cotton-producing nations unable to make their own explosives. He emphasized learning from Russia's scientific history and asserted that nuclear powers are strong. Traoré's presence signaled deepening ties with Russia, viewed as a partner against neo-colonialism. He called for Africa to become scientifically self-reliant and militarily strong to survive in a predatory world. Have a listen to the entire speech translated into English, and please share your thoughts with us in the comments section. This is Uplifting Africa. Being here for the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazism, and having taken part in yesterday's parade, as well as some cultural events the day before, has been a truly insightful experience. It has taught us many things, prompting deep reflection and inspiring us to revitalize the African continent.
Shifting alliances, the Russia-Africa pivot. While Captain Ibrahim Traoré's pivot toward Russia had been unfolding behind the scenes for months, his 2025 appearance in Moscow made it official. Standing boldly at the podium, Traoré declared, "Russia respects our sovereignty. The West does not," drawing thunderous applause from the audience. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was a clear sign that the Burkina Faso-Russia relationship has evolved from speculative to strategic. From military training programs to economic agreements, the two nations are now aligned in purpose and vision. Traoré championed the idea of South-South cooperation, urging African nations to abandon dependency on the West. "Why beg from Brussels when we can build with bricks?" he asked, challenging the dominance of traditional Western institutions. His message was clear: Africa is embracing multipolarity, not as an alternative, but as a necessity. In one of the speech's most searing moments, Traoré looked directly into the cameras and said, "Let this be your headline: Africa no longer asks permission." It was a powerful statement of defiance, independence, and ambition. No longer content to play by Western rules, Burkina Faso, and potentially a broader African bloc, is charting its own path. The post-colonial script is being rewritten. Echoes of Sankara, a revolutionary spirit revived. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stirred deep emotions when he invoked the legacy of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary icon, assassinated in 1987. They feared Sankara not because he had weapons, but because he had a spine. Traoré thundered, drawing a sharp line between past and present. The mention of Sankara electrified the room, a name that still resonates across Africa and unsettles Western powers. By resurrecting Sankara's vision, Traoré signaled that he isn't just another transitional military leader. He's attempting to finish what Sankara started, forging a self-reliant, unyielding Africa. He outlined bold plans, including sweeping land reform, nationalization of mineral resources, and the removal of all foreign military bases from Burkina Faso. "We won't be pawns in anyone's Cold War 2.0, he declared. "Our war is for dignity." With those words, Traoré placed himself firmly in the lineage of anti-imperialist struggle, committed to reclaiming sovereignty on African terms.
His speech, delivered with the cadence of a revolutionary poet and the conviction of a warrior, was a masterclass in Pan-Africanist defiance. It was a speech that shamed African leaders, exposed the hypocrisy of Western powers, and ignited a fire in the hearts of millions. Traoré began with humility, invoking African traditions and spirituality. It is an honor for me to speak here and to convey to you the fraternal greetings of the people of the land of upright men. This is also the place for me, above all, to give thanks to God, Almighty God, who has allowed us to meet here this morning in good health to talk about the future and the well-being of our peoples. I would like to apologize to the elders whom I may offend in my future remarks. Africanity obliges, birthright. I must apologize. This opening set the tone for a speech that was both respectful of African customs and unapologetically confrontational. He then launched into a searing critique of Africa's plight, posing questions that cut to the core of the continent's struggles.
Calling out the UN and NATO, global hypocrisy. Traoré didn't stop with Western governments. He blasted international organizations too. The United Nations, a theater of elite hypocrisy, he said. NATO, a military mafia cartel dressed in democracy. His critique was unsparing. You call for peace in Ukraine while bombing civilians in Africa. You defend sovereignty in Europe while undermining it in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. He accused the Security Council of being a colonial relic that prioritizes the interests of nuclear powers over developing nations. Your resolutions are weapons. Your silence is violence, he said. When Africa bleeds, your cameras turn away. The room was tense, but electrified. These weren't just political jabs, they were battle cries. The dollar under fire, economic warfare, and resource theft. One of Traoré's most explosive sections came when he addressed the weaponization of the dollar. The dollar is not a currency, it's a leash, he declared. He outlined how sanctions, trade imbalances, and foreign aid dependencies were all tools of soft occupation. He proposed a radical solution, a pan-African currency, possibly digital, to trade among African nations without the interference of Western financial systems. We must escape the dollar trap. Africa's future cannot be collateral for Wall Street's greed. Then came the knockout punch. Your wealth is stolen from our soil. Our gold feeds your banks. Our uranium powers your cities. But our children starve. That line would trend on social media worldwide. Reclaiming Africa's resources, a declaration of ownership. Traoré then shifted into what sounded like a declaration of economic war. Starting today, he said, we are suspending all foreign mining contracts not aligned with our sovereignty. He accused multinational corporations of environmental destruction, worker abuse, and neo-slavery through exploitative contracts. Chevron, Total Energies, and Glencore, he named them one by one. You've dug our land, stripped our wealth, and left our people in darkness. That ends now. He promised state control over Burkina Faso's lithium, gold, and manganese sectors and invited other African leaders to join a continental resource liberation front. For Traoré, minerals are not just commodities, they're leverage.
Zdravia želajo tovariš prezidenti. J'espère que je prononce bien.
Ibrahim Traoré stood before Vladimir Putin and the world, not as a beggar seeking aid, but as a bold African leader demanding machines, knowledge, and a future built on self-reliance. That moment, that sentence, "We want machines, not aid," has now gone viral, sending a wave of pride and debate across Africa and beyond. But what did Ibrahim Traoré really mean? Why did his speech in Moscow resonate so deeply? And how does this moment redefine not only Burkina Faso's position on the global stage, but the entire conversation around Africa's place in the 21st century? Let's unpack the powerful speech that has the world talking. Ibrahim Traoré's visit to Russia, his second in less than 2 years, was more than symbolic. It was strategic, deliberate, and deeply ideological. Speaking during a high-level meeting with President Vladimir Putin during the celebrations of the 80th anniversary of Russia's Victory Day, Ibrahim Traoré took the opportunity not just to thank his host, but to issue a powerful call to action. "Thank you very much, Mr. President. Tava President," he began warmly. "I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It is truly an honor to be here for the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great War." But it wasn't just about historical reflection. Before we continue, welcome to Izizi Africa, where we bring the African vision to life and make African stories go global. Ibrahim Traoré used his time on the podium to praise Russia's internal resilience despite sanctions. Despite all the sanctions imposed on Russia.
Youth power, mobilizing Africa's next generation. In a rousing section that echoed movements like Black Lives Matter, Traoré turned to Africa's youth. "You are not the future, you are the fuse," he said. "You are not waiting for change, you are the change." He urged young Africans to reject Western media narratives that portray their continent as helpless or violent. "They fear our potential more than our poverty," he said. "Don't dream of Paris. Build Ouagadougou." He promised youth employment programs, a tech innovation fund, and scholarships in Russian, Chinese, and Indian universities. "Let us decolonize the African mind," he said. Pan-African solidarity, one Africa or no Africa. Traoré's most emotional appeal came when he addressed leaders across the continent. From Mali to Zimbabwe, he called for a united Africa, militarily, economically, and culturally. "We cannot fight alone. Imperialism is a hydra. Only unity is our sword." He proposed a Pan-African Defense Pact, modeled loosely after NATO, but focused on defending against foreign interventions and economic sabotage. "If one African nation is attacked, all must respond," he said. "We are not 54 nations, we are one." He received a standing ovation from several African diplomats in the room. This wasn't just symbolic, it was a manifesto, a warning to coup planners and foreign puppets. Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't shy away from the personal risks of his defiant stance. "They will try to kill me," he stated bluntly. "Assassinations are the punctuation marks of Western diplomacy." It was a chilling reminder of the fate that befell leaders like Thomas Sankara, those who dared challenge global power structures. Traoré's message wasn't only for the West, it was also aimed squarely at African elites who, in his view, have betrayed their people. "You are traitors with passports," he said. "You wear suits while selling your countries in pieces." His words were a stinging rebuke of leaders who align with foreign interests while ignoring domestic struggles and sovereignty. He went further, addressing the wave of military coups sweeping across West Africa. While often condemned internationally as destabilizing, Traoré framed them as a natural consequence of failed democracies. "If democracy is just a tool for elite puppets, then coups are the voice of the people," he declared. His remarks reframed the regional upheaval not as chaos, but as resistance, a people's outcry against decades of exploitation, misgovernance, and broken promises.
Ibrahim Traoré's presence in Russia continues to inspire, and his message, bold, brave, and viral, is now etched into the political discourse of the continent. As his speech spreads, it invites us all to imagine a new future where African countries are not just consumers of global goods, but creators of world-class technologies. A future where the next industrial revolution could very well be African-led.
Global shockwaves, the speech heard around the world. Within hours of the speech, Western news outlets were scrambling. Was this a declaration of Cold War? Was Burkina Faso the new Cuba? Traoré's speech was replayed in war rooms, corporate boardrooms, and activist circles across the globe. CNN called it one of the most dangerous speeches of the decade. Fox News labeled it radical anti-Western propaganda. But in Africa, TikTok and X, formerly Twitter, were flooded with hashtags like Africa Rising, Sankara Lives, and Traoré takes Moscow. Even in places like Brazil, Venezuela, and Palestine, his words struck a chord. "Our fight is your fight," he had said, and many were listening. Traoré's gamble, a turning point or a final stand? Of course, speeches are one thing, real change is another. Analysts warned that Traoré's aggressive tone could provoke sanctions, political isolation, or worse. But others say that may be exactly what he wants, to force Africa into a moment of self-reliance. "History doesn't wait," he said. "It chooses those who act." He knows the stakes, he knows the risks, but if his speech showed anything, it's that Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not here to negotiate his continent's dignity. He's here to demand it. Captain Ibrahim Traoré came to Russia not to play it safe, but to light a fuse. And tonight, the explosion of his words is echoing across continents. He's not just representing Burkina Faso, he's becoming the face of a new generation of African leaders who are tired of asking for a seat at the table and are now flipping the entire table over. His message was clear. Africa is done being controlled. Africa is done being looted. And Africa is ready to rise, on its own terms. Whether you see Traoré as a freedom fighter or a radical, one thing is undeniable. He is shifting conversations, realigning alliances, and making the world nervous. And when the world gets nervous, history tends to get made. Will this moment mark the start of a deeper Africa-Russia alliance? Will the West retaliate politically or economically? And will more African leaders follow in Traoré's revolutionary footsteps? The global chessboard is moving fast, and this was one hell of a move. If you're as captivated by this unfolding story as we are, hit that like button, subscribe for in-depth global coverage, and let us know in the comments, is Traoré the voice Africa has been waiting for? Because one thing's for certain, after today, the world will never see Burkina Faso or Africa the same way again.